World War II has just ended and world peace is back. But wait, there's a twist. Building tensions between Western powers and Russia led to the creation of the NATO alliance, and in return, the Warsaw Pact was made. Hello, my name is Ariel, and today I'll be talking about the Warsaw Pact and how NATO expansion and Soviet reforms led to its dissolution. The Warsaw Pact was made by Soviet Russia so they could make its own group of military alliances like NATO to ensure NATO does not expand any further and guarantee a harsh resistance if NATO ever attacks. The making of NATO and the Soviet Union led to many tensions, and the Cold War was suddenly in full swing as both sides supported small proxy wars in other countries. This was when the relations between both sides deteriorated, and they started looking at each other as hostiles and enemies. Now, this is a map that shows the territory between both sides during the height of the Cold War. Alright, let's move on. Decades passed by and most proxy wars between both sides has ended, and the leader of the USSR had changed. NATO also has new members that joined due to aligning interests, while the Warsaw Pact mostly stayed with its original members. Here are all the NATO members and when they join. These are the Warsaw Pact members. This NATO expansion worried the Soviet Union top officials, and they decided to create reforms to make life in the Soviet Union better and to improve the economy. There are two reforms made by the Soviet Union, and they are Perestroika and Glasnost. Perestroika was made by President Mikhail Gorbachev at the time to kickstart the Soviet economy and restructure politics in the Soviet Union. Then we move on to Glasnost. This was also made by Mikhail Gorbachev, and this reform was also about restructuring politics, but Gorbachev wanted to make the Soviet Union more democratic, which was a problem. This was because allowing the citizens to choose who came into power allowed multi-candidate elections, which reduced the power of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union. These reforms also allowed criticism of the government, as freedom of speech was allowed and the news started to pick up on criticism. This allowed Western ideals to circulate, and this was one of the reasons why the Warsaw Pact collapsed, as the communist states wanted independence again. We then move on back to NATO. This is because NATO expansion was a contributing factor to the fall of the Warsaw Pact. NATO expansion brought the borders closer to the Soviet Union, and this allowed people to start gaining Western ideals as states start to receive Western influence. Then, many started to revolt and protest against the communist government as they realized life in Western countries were better, and this in turn pressured the communist government. The final blow to the Warsaw Pact was a speech by a top official from the Communist Party, and he messed up his speech. This mess up led to the fall of the Berlin Wall and the power of the Communist Party. After the Warsaw Pact ended, the states split into independent countries again, which include Russia, Ukraine, Czechoslovakia, Albania, Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and the unification of West and East Germany.